Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown.
Back again on a Wednesday. No shortage of things to talk about this week, guys. We did our little prediction, little guessing game from the spring game last week. We'll touch on that. Talk basketball a little bit because Dusty May has been a busy gentleman. But we're actually just going to kick it off with, I guess, a bit of unfortunate news just before we go live here. Eric was talking about it. Me and Nick were talking about it before we went live. DJ Waller has entered the transfer portal, and I mean that's a kid that I literally thought, like, if Michigan was playing a game tomorrow, he might be starting opposite Will Johnson. He's a second-year player. He played in a bunch of games as a true freshman, so I guess you'd call him a sophomore, not a redshirt. But anyway, big kid. I remember thinking out on the field sometimes he looks like a damn edge rusher. I mean, he was like 6'3", really put together, pretty good in coverage. I think they tried him out at safety a little bit, but he also played, regular cornerback. He had an interception in the spring game. Physical kid. I don't get that one. I don't really get that one. I mean, Michigan had done a really good job of keeping guys in the program. Keon Sabb, we talked about before, really the only meaningful loss they had, and then it meant even more when Rod Moore got hurt. And now this is another spot, dude. Eric, you were down on the field. DJ Waller played a lot. In the game. He made a couple plays. He's not a guy you and I talked about a lot by himself, but that's weird that he's out. I don't really get that.
And we both probably expected him to take a big leap this year in terms of playing time and production. Losing more, like you said, put the onus on him to show up this season, and he was on the field for a lot of the spring game. I was editing so many pictures of him. I expected him to be a focal point of the secondary this year.
Yeah, young guy, and they're trying to. Jair Hill played pretty well. He made a play in the spring game, and they've got Jaden McBurrows. They've got some other dudes they're kind of working out there, but you never want to play this guessing game, but I think you could probably go. I'll go to Nick next. How many guys do you think if I was to say, okay, we just watched the spring game, we know what the depth chart looks like a little bit. We've seen some guys play. We know there's going to be some dudes that transfer out. How far down the list would you have put DJ Waller if you were guessing the likelihood of dudes leaving?
He would have been way down there, but it's one of those things now in college football or all of college sports where you just don't know where these kids' heads are. Like they might not even be tipping their hand, but you don't know if they're having contacts with people at other universities. Are they getting NIL money floated their way? Like, hey, I can get you more money to come here. We got an automatic starting spot for you. He's already got, championship with Michigan. Hey, come try to get us one here. Like, there's a whole lot of factors that are now playing into college sports that we just have to completely rethink the transfer portal. I mean, you got guys that are, and I don't fault them. If you can go make more money somewhere else to do the same thing, it's hard to fault these kids for thinking of themselves and their well-being and maybe their family's well-being. And again, I'm speculating there because none of us really know why he's left. Right. I'm sure that may come out in the next few weeks, but that's just one of those things. Like you said, Brandon, he played well in the spring game. He made some plays in the run game. He broke up some passes. He got the pick. So yeah, it's a big loss for us, but trying to understand why
it's tricky.
It's just really hard in today's game.
Yeah,
now, in theory, I know it's unlikely, but he could still remove his name from the transfer portal, correct?
Yeah,
he could
for sure.
That doesn't usually happen, but he could. Yeah,
well, there again, are you trying to negotiate or bargain?
Yeah.
I'm going to put my name out there because I don't like the amount of money you're giving me.
There's a window. There's a window. It's 30 days. You're not penalized by jumping in there and jumping back out if it does. I can't imagine that would sit well with your coaching staff and your teammates, but you are allowed to do that. You are allowed to. It's kind of like a little free agency period. He's listed
they kind of have leverage.
Yeah, listed at 6'3", 205. Like I said, that's a big dude playing cornerback. He's listed as a potential safety player too. He's obviously built very different from Rod Moore and Mikey Sainer, still some of those guys that moved around a little bit, but Ohio kid too. So it's not, sometimes maybe it's just a homesick thing. I mean, a kid comes from California or Florida. This is a Midwest kid, man. This Ohio kid, I don't think that plays a part. So yeah, to Nick's point, no idea. I mean, maybe at some point we'll get some of that information. You can always ask around, but I always find it interesting too, because you sometimes think well, maybe I'll ask another player. They have a fraternity. They hate to see their boys go, but they get it. They understand exactly why somebody may want to leave or may not want to leave, or greener pastures or whatever the case may be. I guess now, Dan, the question then is, and we didn't have a concrete answer after the spring game, but now what are we thinking about the cornerback spot opposite Will? Will Johnson's the guy. He's never coming off the field. We know that. But opposite him now, it's even thinner, and we didn't have an answer there before.
As much as he played and he looked good, and everything I read did talk about him. So I'm pretty sure everyone's in agreement that he was pretty solidly in the conversation for being the main starter, or at least getting a ton of playing time at one of those positions.
Yeah,
but it's not like anything was settled after the spring game. I don't know that this, as polar opposite as it is in a few spots. Will Johnson's as concrete as any position in the country in terms of that, and then the other position is pretty much flapping in the wind. So I don't know that it changed a lot.
Yeah,
we just got one fewer guy in the depth chart, and it maybe was one of the guys that has showed that he can play. But I don't know.
And just because Michigan can lose players to the transfer portal, they could also pick up a defensive back.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, he was one of the true freshmen last year who played meaningful snaps quite a bit. I mean, you always get freshmen who he played in 11 games. He had competitive reps against Michigan State and in the Big Ten title games. I mean, this is a guy who they were kind of counting on, certainly was going to be in the mix for a starting spot. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. You don't really see guys leave that have that much of a potential opportunity in front of them. And like Nick said, it could be any number of 20 reasons why.
Right. That's why hopefully we'll get a little more information. Just, not that it matters. If he leaves, he leaves. I guess it don't really matter why, but there's 20 reasons that could be. And it's, hate to speculate on stuff, especially when it comes to shady stuff like other schools, because he shouldn't have any contact with other schools if he's not in the portal.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong. There shouldn't be NIL offers from other places either. That would be also against the
rules. Yeah. So
he has to be in the portal to get those kind of conversations.
I can't remember.
Maybe he didn't want to get in the portal and lose playing time in the spring game, and then he wanted to do his toe in the portal. Who knows?
Yep. I any number of things, and I wish I had that exact date of when the portal was open. Obviously, it is now, but it's right around now. Spring games all across the country are wrapping up. It's a 30-day window.
Yeah.
Was it the 15th?
It might have been I was thinking
there,
a week ago.
Yeah.
Started seeing guys get into the portal here within the last week or two, and I mean, I'm just reading another article over from 24/7 Sports, and the coaches were raving about him. He's long. He's been super impressive all spring. Can't wait to see his development. Can't wait. And now he's in the portal. It just doesn't really add up. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I didn't realize this either. He was committed to Toledo before he flipped to Michigan. So, I mean, I can't imagine he's going to go back to a place like that, or, somewhere. He was also interested in Kentucky. Who knows? But yeah, that's weird. That's a weird one, because he made some plays in the past, made at least one nice play in the spring game. And like I said, if I was the DB's coach or the defensive coordinator, he probably would have been my pick to start opposite Will Johnson if they played a game tomorrow. Jair Hill made a nice play in the spring game, and there are some other guys who've been around a little longer, but I don't know, man. 6'3", 200 pounds, and the way he's played, I liked a lot about DJ Waller, but he is, as of right now, on his way out the door. But again, we'll see what happens, but rarely at this point in the season does a guy get in the portal and then decide to come back. But we'll see. It's not like I guess it is kind of like that. They do have a new coach. I was going to say, it's not like the couple guys on the basketball team who went into the portal, kind of see what things were like, and then decided to come back. But it isn't all that different, I guess, with Sharon being there. So we'll see what that ends up looking like at cornerback opposite Will Johnson. So there's that little bit of weird news. Didn't expect to talk about DJ Waller getting in the portal tonight, but there you go. Speaking of basketball, I have the list up right here. We are not going to dive into each one of these guys individually, but over the course of 5 days, Dusty May added 7 guys to the roster, a couple high school players, a bunch of transfer guys, still a couple unknowns on the roster from last year. We're not exactly sure what they're going to do. And then a couple guys who were on the team last year have decided to come back and kind of made that publicly known. So I'll do a quick rundown in case you guys aren't super familiar with all the names and where the numbers come from. But now there's 12 of 13 scholarships spoken for. Again, 2 guys kind of up in the air still. And then I guess there's always a little bit of concern that some of these transfer guys won't get through admissions. You hope that doesn't happen. But as of right now,
we've seen it before.
We've seen
it before.
Yeah, Yale dude will probably be okay.
He'll probably make it.
Some of the 3 of the other ones, you talk about a dude from Auburn, North Texas, and Bama. I don't know what they're doing at those places, but I think the Ohio State guy, as much as we'll all shit on Ohio State, they're actually a pretty decent school. You can't hate on it that much. But yeah, the Yale guy will probably be just fine. All right, so here's what we've got so far. I broke these up into 4 categories. You've got incoming high school recruits, incoming transfers, returning players, and then those 2 unknown guys. So the incoming high school recruits, Darrell Brooks, local kid. He's been committed for a long time, committed to Juwan Howard, but he decided to stay on board. Everything looks on the up and up there. Lorenzo Cason, he was committed to Dusty May at Florida Atlantic. He scored like 60 points in a game as a senior. I mean, a guy who can really fill it up, does a lot on the offensive end. And then a name I think we all recognize, even the young buck Eric will know, Justin Pippen, the son of Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen, man. That's kind of cool. Like, I mean, me, Nick, and Dan, I know Nick was a big MJ fan, big Bulls guy back in the day. I don't know where did Scottie rank for you, Nick? I know Jordan was like God for almost everybody, but
he was number 2 at the time, because when Jordan left, I was pretty much devastated, and I was already bought in on the Bulls. So I was like, well, I guess we'll roll with Pippen.
Yeah. And Pippen, I mean, in his own right, Hall of Famer, won a bunch of titles, sure, alongside Michael Jordan, but still, big time name. And yeah, you see Justin Pippen, and now he's going to be rocking the Pippen jersey. I wonder if he's going to wear 33. I don't know. That's pretty cool. So those are the 3 incoming high school kids. Again, 3 guards, not a lot of size in that group. That's kind of a theme across the board, actually. We'll get into that a little bit. And then the incoming transfers. This is where it gets pretty interesting, because you can put film on from all these guys actually playing college ball and really kind of get a sense and see what it might look like on the floor for Michigan next year. So Trey Donaldson from Auburn, kind of a stocky built dude, pretty quick first step, can shoot it from 3. Roddy Gale Jr. from Ohio State. Eric, I think you put up a little bit about him. We've put up something about all these guys, but I don't know much about him. I'll be completely honest. I feel like he's the one I should know the most about, and I don't for whatever reason. What can you say about Roddy Gale?
So if I remember correctly, he's played 2 years at Ohio State. He played more in the first season than the second. He started 10 out of 35 games his sophomore year. I might have those numbers mixed with his freshman season. But he looked like he was going to play next season. He's got a good 3-point shot, and he's got Big Ten experience, so it's helpful to add him to the roster at the very least.
Yeah, that's a theme here with this 3. All these dudes can shoot. All these dudes
are a winger,
which is something we didn't see under Juwan Howard. I mean, that was always kind of their Achilles heel. They didn't have a lot of guys that could fill it up from the outside, but all these dudes can shoot. Reuben Jones, another guard from North Texas, same kind of deal. He's played a ton of basketball for them. I think he's the winningest player ever at that program, which is actually a decent little program in one of the G5 conferences. So he can really score it. And these last 2 dudes, I'm very intrigued by. Sam Walters, a 6'10" forward from Alabama, I believe a freshman. He only played 1 year at Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. Also can shoot it, can put it on the deck. Not like a way above the rim player, but some of his highlights are pretty impressive. Even of him, going to the basket and dunking on people. And then Danny Wolf, the kid that Nick mentioned from Yale, a 7-footer, can also shoot it, can dribble it, can handle, can pass, and was a big reason why Yale actually upset Auburn in the tournament this past year. So now you got Trey Donaldson and Danny Wolf, who played against each other in the tournament recently. teaming up on the same team. So that's pretty cool. So we'll stop right there. So we got, I don't know, it's kind of interesting when you look at the 5 guys brought in from transfers. It actually fits together like a pretty good starting 5. I don't think that's what it will be, but you've got Trey Donaldson, Reuben Jones, and Roddy Gale, who are all – Trey Donaldson's more like your point guard. He's a little smaller, a little stockier. Roddy Gale and Reuben Jones, decent size on the wing. Sam Walters, your 6'10", stretch 4. And then Danny Wolf can play center, but he can also pop out. So thoughts just right there, Nick, initially on – I mean, do you think that was intentional? It kind of looks like it was. Like he brought in a guy at each position. They all fit together pretty well. They're all versatile. They can all move around and they can all shoot. It looks like a pretty good – again, like I don't know if it will be your starting 5, but if you needed it to be, it probably could be.
What's so impressive about this is just how quickly he's put it all together. Yeah. I think that's what's shocking to me. I mean, we talked about it about a month ago when we were looking at what our expectations were for Dusty May. It was basically, what could you get through the transfer portal? We thought maybe you could do it quicker than traditional rebuilds, but this is just blowing everybody away. I mean, he's got, how quickly can they gel? That's the question. Yeah. But man, he just hit the ground running and got guys, like you said, that are proven players already that have NCAA experience.
Not all starters, but a handful of starters. I mean, you've got guys who have done a little bit of everything from different levels. I mean, like I said, Sam Walters, the kid from Bama, it's a true freshman. He hasn't played a ton. Then you've got Reuben Jones, who's played more than anybody in program history where he came from. Danny Wolf, I think, has played 2 years. Real versatile guy, has tournament experience. Roddy Gale comes from the rivals right over to Michigan. He's played in the Big Ten. So it's a cool mix. And like I said, to start off the chat about this, 7 guys in 5 days. I actually think all of them were on campus. Maybe certainly some of them with each other too. So they got a chance to spend some time together, spend some time with the coaches, the coaching staff. And now you've got 12 of 13 guys filled out on the scholarship. So the returning players, we talked about this before, Will Cheddar, who played sparingly last year, and then George Washington III, who was in the portal and decided to jump out of the portal. He didn't play a whole lot last year, but he's now back for some depth. And then the unknowns, and this is where we'll kind of finish off with this before we get into football. Guard Namari Burnett, who came over last year as a transfer, and then Terrence Williams II, who's been at Michigan. Is this his 4th year or 5th year going on now? He's been there the whole time. Decided not to ever jump into the transfer portal, but I guess there's no way to know this. I mean, I'd be guessing just as much as anybody, so I'll have Dan do it publicly. What do you think? What do you think might happen with these two? I mean, does it make sense for them to stay now that Dusty May's kind of putting pieces together and they can see what it might look like? Or you just never know with guys when there's a whole rechange of everything.
How long is their portal window open?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you want to talk for a second, I can try to find it.
Well, I mean, from everything I'm reading, he's still got the 2 other FAU guys that he's really trying to still bring in. So, I mean, if he's going to try to get them in, these guys kind of got to go. Right?
Yeah.
Numbers-wise. You got Golden and Davis.
Yeah, Vlad Golden, more of the true center, 7'2", 250 back to the basket. And then Janelle Davis, who would – I think he's the number 1 or number 2 kid in the whole portal. Like Kentucky wants him, like Calipari wants him at Arkansas. Like he's a really competent player. He'd be your starting point guard from day one, no question.
So I mean, it's kind of like how long do they have in the portal? If they still have some time and he's still trying to court these other 2, I mean, we'll have to kind of wait and see on that. I think it probably more depends on that than it does anything else.
Yeah. So I sort of have a question about the roster construction, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Do you think the fact that the disparity leans more to guards at this moment, is that indicative of what Dusty May to do on offense next season? Or does that just show that he's not complete fully in assembling the team that he wants?
Right. Depends on if he gets Golden or not.
Yeah, I mean, if you're heading into next season with – looking at the guys. If you're heading into next season and you've got Danny Wolf, Sam Walters, and Golden, you're good. Your bigs are good. Like Sam Walters isn't a 5, but he's 6'10". I mean, he can play a little bit, and basketball is getting more and more positionless anyways. And if you've got guys who can shoot, that makes it tougher on the other team anyway. So and Terrence Williams has always played bigger than he is. He's probably only about 6'7", but he's played the 5 and he can mix it up, and he's got a pretty big body. He can get in there and do some things. And then Cheddar, same thing. I mean, he's a 4 that can bang a little bit and hustle and get you some boards and stuff. So I think if they get Golden, that really solidifies their bigs. Like, because like I said, he's your true center, and then every guy below that is kind of like a notch under what you'd want from a true five. I mean, Danny Wolf, yeah, he's a 7-footer, but he also can dribble and shoot threes. You're going to use him in pick and pop, stuff like that. Walter's 6'10", but he's not a center. He's like a forward all day. And then, like I said, those smaller guys from there. So it's interesting, but I think most experts say, like, you know, guards drive it, especially in the tournament, man. Guard play is so important in college basketball to have, you know, some heady guards, guys who will take care of the ball, not turn it over, run your offense. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to look back at how he constructed his rosters at FAU and kind of what that looked like. You know, how many, obviously he had Golden there, so you know he would translate over to what he's going to do at Michigan. So, yeah, that's an interesting.
It's a good point about Golden, because if he feels good about him picking Michigan, that sort of frees him up and gives him the space to pursue the guards that he has recently.
Yeah, man, if he can get, I mean, not that I want to say like get out of here to one of those other guys, but if he can get Golden and Davis, like they are off and running next year for sure in terms of the roster construction and who could potentially play in all those 5 spots.
All these guys he's brought in except for one has multiple years. I mean, Jones is the only one who's only got 1 year of eligibility.
Yeah,
got 2 free.
Yeah, I think Donaldson is a freshman as well, if I'm not mistaken, just a 1-year guy at Auburn. Gale 2 years, Walters 1, yeah, and Danny Wolf's only played 2 years.
I think
so
Donaldson's going to be a junior.
Maybe he's a little older. Okay,
2 years in, yeah.
I cannot find the dates. I'm finding all these updates on who's doing what, but I can't find like a hard men's college basketball. The transfer portal opened March 18th for basketball. So, but this is obviously like the longer away from the off season, so there's probably more time. Anyway, obviously it's still going on because there's guys still out there making their decisions and stuff like that. So, but it's interesting. I mean, yeah, the last time we did a pod, you were like, "What the hell is this team even going to look like?"
Anybody, right?
Yeah, who's he going to play?
None of these guys got in yet.
Yeah, who's he going to
All
play?
happened since last Wednesday.
All 5 of those transferred and the 2 high school kids, have happened since last Wednesday. So, yeah, that's crazy. That's wild. Like Nick said, it happened so fast. All at one time here.
Dusty May did mention during the spring game, he kind of gave a clue that there'd be more fireworks in the door from a recruiting perspective over the weekend, and he certainly delivered on that front.
Sorry, I just seeing people in the comments saying there's an echo. I apologize. Forgot to turn that off. Hopefully that's good now. Sorry about that, everybody. I forgot to turn the soundboard off.
Check.
These guys
Sound
work.
better.
It always sounds normal in my head, so if they don't complain about hearing an echo, I don't know what's happening. So
we tried on the group chat.
They tried to send you a text, but you weren't.
Oh, did you?
That's better right there. It's good.
Damn it. Well, that's why I didn't see it.
This makes such a big difference already.
That's why I stopped talking for a few minutes, because I was like, Dan's talking to himself, and it sounds like there's 4 people. So I'm just going to wait.
six minutes ago, both Nick and Eric are like, hey.
Yeah, I do that off there too. Sorry.
Who could we throw it to other than Brandon in that situation, though?
That was my plan. I just want to be. It's just all me the whole time. No,
we don't have the controls.
Yeah, sorry about that. Should be good now. It's just a quick button push. I just forgot to do it after we started, so it should be good now. So that's where we're at with basketball now. I mean, again, we'll see what happens with Golden, with David. For a while now, they've said that Golden was a lean. Like, people expected him to pick Michigan. It hasn't happened yet, so we'll see if that does. Davis, on the other hand, is being courted by like everybody. And I don't know if that's as likely, but we'll see.
I wonder if Wolf coming, officially, jumping in changes anything for Golden.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I mean,
you got to have a couple bigs.
You can't have a couple big.
Yeah, man, he's got to know that. He's got to know that.
Golden eligible for the draft too, or didn't he enter his name for that?
You might be right. There's been a couple guys who've done the, enter the draft, so they'll wait and see what happens there, and then not, they'll keep their eligibility. Yeah. So anyway, there you have it. There you have it on the basketball front. Dusty May, man, he's been hot. I felt like every article I was writing for a while, there was like Dusty May again. Dusty May stays hot. Dusty May with another one. 7 guys in 5 days. So the roster just about full as we sit now. Again, 12 of the 13 scholarships are filled. Couple transfer portal targets still out there. And Namari Burnett and Terrence Williams still up in the air a little bit as far as whether or not they'll be back at Michigan. So that's where we sit with B-ball. All right, we're 25 minutes in. We got the spring game in the books. Team Mays, which I thought looked like the worst team on paper. They get the win 17-7. I went through and wrote it down, and I just thought that I really thought that the blue team had more of the starters and more guys that would make an impact, and it just looked like that, especially on offense. And, like we talked about a bunch of times, that Donovan didn't play that much. He wasn't in there a lot. Colston wasn't in there that much. Alex Orji played quite a bit. Actually, we're going to get to that, but we're going to revisit the things that we talked about last week where we made our guesses. We'll talk about what ended up happening, how guys looked, kind of how it went across the board. And I think by going through and revisiting these guesses that were made, we'll do a pretty good job of covering the spring game from start to finish. So number one, if you guys recall, was how many carries would Donovan Edwards have? I said 8. Eric, do you remember? Do you have your numbers in front of you?
Yeah, 3 at the most 4.
Okay, Nick?
I had 2.
2, and Dan?
I had 6.
6. So Donovan Edwards finished with 5 carries, so that puts Dan the closest, I guess. But we were all in the wheelhouse. All of us were pretty close. Single-digit carries. Thought he'd have a pretty chill day. 5 carries, went for 33 yards, and I actually thought he looked pretty damn good. I mean, it wasn't a big sample size. Sure, he's going against not all starters, but I don't know, Nick. To me, he looked bigger. First of all, he looked bigger. He's up 15 pounds. The forward lean, he got some good yardage. He had I think an 11-yard run was his longest. I don't know. Thought he looked pretty good.
Bigger, quicker.
Yeah.
They were interviewing Blake Corum during the game, and he was even saying the same thing. Like, he looks like the guy. He said he looks like he's carrying himself really well. Figures he's going to be able to handle the workload. I may be tipping off something that we would talk about a little bit later, but I think part of the reason why he was able to get off, and I noticed this when the blue team had the ball, is Alex Orji being in at quarterback.
Yeah.
You watch the defense when he's in there. Those ends can't crash. They can't come down hard on Donovan because they know Orji's a threat to pull and go
out the back door. Yeah.
When the other guys were in there, our running game really didn't have much. They'd hand it off, and those backs had dudes coming from the backside to get them because there just wasn't a threat of that pull. With Orji's in there, I'm telling you, Edwards is going to have a good season because there's just another guy they got to defend every single play.
Yeah,
I'm kind of excited about it, honestly.
I wrote the article and I said, Alex Orji's got to be your guy. I mean, unless they find some stud in the portal that I don't know about that yet. And a couple of decent names have gone into the portal. Actually, a couple quarterbacks who have played and have done some nice things. But I love the idea of him playing quarterback in that running game and what it could look like.
I saw something today that said we are not looking for a quarterback in the portal. I could have swore I read that somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised. I know. So when we talked to Sharon Moore on. What day was that? Was it Monday? I think it was Monday. He's terrible, by the way. He says less than Harbaugh does. I mean, I love the guy, but dude, his interview questions are terrible. But every question was like, well, we'll see. Well, we'll see. I'm like, you're the coach. Tell us something, bro. Like, something.
Answer that with that's a good question.
Yeah. So and we were leaving, and I know one of the other guys was like, can you tell us why you're being so coy? Can you just answer a question? Like, one of the other media people asked him that. I was like, hell yeah, dude. Like, that's what we need. And he's like, I'm just focused on winning. Even his answer to that question was like coach speak. But so we were getting ready to leave, and I'm like, he's gotta, well, he doesn't have to, but what's going to happen is people in the media are going to get sick of those kind of answers, and they're going to come up with their own spins because we got to try to find something interesting to write about. And him answering like that every time is not interesting. So I was thinking, to Nick's point, somebody asked him, like, do you think the starting quarterback is on the roster right now? And he said, we'll see. So my headline was going to be like, Sharon Moore has no idea if he has a quarterback or something, but that's what we're going to have to do because he won't say anything. But if somebody got that information from somewhere else, it certainly wasn't directly from Sharon Moore about them not looking in the transfer portal. So I don't know if it would
came from the quarterback coach. I think is where
it's possible,
or the offensive. Offensive.
It's possible. Kirk Campbell maybe said that, and maybe that's the company line in public. I don't know if you want to openly say like we're looking. We got to find a guy. Right.
Yeah,
that doesn't do a whole lot.
We're just going to have to talk to the assistant coaches if we want definitive answers on things pertaining to the team.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, Lamar Morgan said more than he probably should have last time, and Tony Alford's pretty outspoken. Wink, same thing. But Sharon is, he just doesn't say a lot, and whatever. It's his prerogative. But not very good for interviewing and for writing articles. So there you go. So here's our first Alex Orji question. And to Nick's point too, even though the running part of his game was there, like it wasn't really, because he's not live. You can't hit him. He get tapped on the hip on that one, and they called it a sack when he would have scored on that all day.
No,
even the long one, yeah, even the long one that he ran in, he would have been at about the 6-yard line with a full head of steam, and somebody was going to try to make contact with him to keep him out. I think he probably gets in on that one too. They counted that one. Anyway, so we'll see what that looks like, obviously, when it's live. But so question number 2, how many throws does Alex Orji make? Eric, what did you say?
4 to 6.
Okay, Nick.
I had 5, and when I made when I made that guess, I didn't take into account the fact that they were going to handle these guys with kid gloves and not touch them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
so I was thinking, oh, he's going to be out, and it's like, well, you might as well leave him in there. You can't touch him.
Yeah, Dan.
I had 10.
I also had 10. He threw it 18 times. 18 times. I think 10 was like maybe wishful thinking. I probably was thinking it might be less than that, but I was like, he'll throw it 10. He went 13 of 18 for 103 yards. His first 2 throws out of the gate were not good. He missed a guy in the flat that you've got to hit 100% of the time, and I think he was high on another one after that. But then he settled in and had some nice throws, and he finished the day with a really good percentage, 13 of 18, 103. I guess, Nick, since you just said what you said, does that matter? I mean, were you impressed with the throws, the accuracy, or is it like, weird receivers, you can't really touch them? Like, what does that really mean?
It's hard to tell because, like you said, like I was saying, you can't touch him, so he really doesn't have to worry about the pressure so much. So he can kind of just sit back there. It's almost like 7-on-7 for him.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, he did make some nice throws. I think the thing I was looking for is, could he put some touch on the ball? We all know he can throw a fastball.
Yeah.
But can he put a little touch on it and make them catchable balls for his guys? Because we don't have those, other than Loveland and maybe Edwards, we don't have those proven guys that are just going to go and everything's going to stick to their hands. And he did that a few times. He lobbed one up over top of the defender and jumped it into the flats. So all in all, like, I was encouraged by what I saw out of him overall from his play. So
I know everybody was saying that, like, oh, it wasn't even close. Davis Warren's best quarterback. I'm like, guys, really? Nothing against Davis Warren. I don't see there's two different in terms of like arm strength, size, athleticism. Like, I don't think it's really that close. I think Alex Orji is your definite starter from now until you play, unless they find some random star in the portal, and I just don't really see that happening. So
defenses don't have to game plan for Davis Warren.
They don't.
They're just
and
not.
They absolutely would have to with Alex Orji. So Dan,
sorry.
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I don't think Orji's anywhere close to being a finished product as a quarterback either. Whereas Warren is a bit closer to that mark.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to put it. So Dan, you and I both said 10. I think that was the high water mark for everybody. He throws at 18. I guess, are you surprised by that? Or is it just like, let him get out there and wing it around a little bit for this blue team and see what it looks like? Because they also had, if I'm not mistaken, they had Samaj Morgan, Tyler Morris, Donovan Edwards, and was Loveland also on? Or was
Loveland
he on
the other team?
So it was Klein. It was Klein who had, I think, 3 or 4 targets himself. So, maybe that was a somewhat realistic look of what the offense could look like.
Yeah, we probably should, if we knew each side was just going to play 2 quarterbacks, because they each played just 2, right?
Yeah, a bunch of guys didn't play. That's true,
didn't play. It was just Denegal and Jaden Davis and Warren and Orji.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep.
So if we thought about it like that, 2 per side, and the fact that you're looking for receivers and looking for a quarterback, we probably should have thought they're going to throw it a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you're right.
So I'm not surprised by the 18, and I wasn't. I mean, he certainly didn't wow in the past game. I mean, like you talked about those first 2 throws. The first one was a bad throw, and the second one was kind of a bad decision.
Yeah.
And then after that, he was fine. I mean, that's
I'm sure he was nervous.
He was fine.
I'm sure he was nervous too. He's out there. He's like, holy cow, like this, I don't know how many tens of thousands were there, but he hasn't really done that before. And
he's played some snaps in games, but he hasn't thrown a pass.
And he probably knows I'm the guy. Like, I'm the guy. I think a lot of people think I'm the guy. I got to go out here and do this. And he might have had a few nerves on those first couple because they weren't.
For me, like, nothing changed. Going into the offseason, it was like Tuttle is your high floor guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Orji's your high ceiling guy when it comes to running the ball and how competent can he be in the pass game. And, Warren is probably maybe your higher ceiling when it comes to looking like that pro style guy that can throw the ball, maybe stretch the field. But when you look at our roster and how we want to play, like, it's not going to be Warren. Like, we don't have receivers and we don't care about stretching the field.
Yeah.
So it's like that guy should have transferred. Like, I'm not saying I want him to. You need depth, but I'm like, it's not going to be him. It's Orton.
Yeah. There's you even have a guy in JJ who was about to be a top 5 pick and they didn't throw the ball with him.
Yeah,
right. So you can get by with a guy like Alex Orji. I think that's very true. So on that note, question number 3, which one of the 3 main guys that we think are going to be the main pass catchers? I said Colston Loveland, Samaj Morgan, and Tyler Morris, and certainly Donovan Edwards will factor into that too. But of Loveland, Samaj, and Tyler Morris, who will have the most catches? I said Samaj Morgan, and he finished with 0. So that was wrong. Eric, who'd you say?
Samaj Morgan.
So we were both very wrong there. Nick, who'd you have?
I had Tyler Morris.
Okay, he finished with 2, and Dan, you said?
I also had Morris, yeah.
So Morris and Loveland both finished with 2 catches. They didn't play very much. I mean, when you look back, Orji was in there longer than they were. Donovan Edwards even had a little bit more of a run, I think, than they did. Again, it's tough with spring. You just don't know who's going to be in there and what it's going to look like. But there's a couple of these questions where I'm like, I was so off on that because the guys just weren't in there that much. But yeah, I mean, that's okay. Don't even worry about Colston Loveland. He's a potential All-American. He's a stud. Like, what you're going to get out of him. I still think that Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris both have something to prove. They didn't do a ton last year. They both flashed a couple nice plays, but
showed that they can make plays.
So Dan, you did pick Tyler Morris. I mean, where do you think, what would be we'll just say good, not like an incredible, but what's a good season for Tyler Morris in 2024? I mean, if you have specific numbers, that's cool. If you have just some vague explanations, what do you think you should expect out of him?
I mean, when you look at that whole wide receiver room, like I said, you don't have a stretch the field guy there, so we're not going to try to stretch the field with long passes. So what are going to be good seasons for those guys? Yards after the catch, good seasons for those guys. So and I think they're all like that. I think you got Tyler Morris, you got Samaj Morgan, you got Frederick Moore. They're all that same guy to me. Like, get him the ball underneath. Like, think about the Patriots offense with Wes Welker and those guys. Just possession guys, get him the ball in the middle, let him run after the catch a little bit.
Loveland can be your Gronkowski. He'll be your deep down the field guy.
We're not slinging it 50 yards down the field like any of those guys. We're just not going to do it.
Let me ask you guys all this. So Tyler Morris is not Ronnie Bell. He ended up having a really good career. He made it to the NFL. He's playing sparingly for one of the best teams in the league in the Niners. He's doing really well. His true sophomore season, Ronnie Bell's true sophomore season, he had 48 catches for 750 yards. And if you remember, he was very weirdly never getting in the end zone. He only had 1 touchdown that year, but he had 48 catches for 758. If you could get 40 and 600 out of Tyler Morris, would that be better or worse than you expect?
Much better.
Better? Okay. Well, I mean, that's not a crazy year for a third-year player who is going to be stepping in to a bigger role. I would imagine, he scored a touchdown against Alabama, looked pretty good on that one play. I remember it was so weird that Ronnie Bell could not score. He had 1 touchdown 3 years in a row. It was very strange. But that was Ronnie's kind of breakout year as a true sophomore. Nobody really expected a lot from him because he wasn't a big-time recruit, and he ended up being very, very stable and finished his best year, obviously, was his senior season, 62 catches for 889 and 4 touchdowns. So, I don't think any receiver is getting that, but I think 40 and 600 is pretty reasonable for one of those two guys. I mean, do you think, all right, let me ask you, I asked Dan this, Nick, I'll ask you this. Do you think there's going to be much of a difference between Morgan and Morris? Or is it kind of I call maybe 2A and 2B behind Loveland? Maybe that's what it ends up looking like. Oh, did we lose Nick's audio? Lost your audio. Oh, there we go.
My little button.
All right.
I think Morgan might be used in the run game a little bit more.
Yeah.
In my view, they used him a little bit last year on some reverses and some, jet sweeps. As far as in the pass game, I think they'll be used almost exactly the same.
And then you got Frederick Moore made a nice little play, and he's a little longer, a little bigger than the other two. Not a lot. He's pretty thin, but a little bit. Yeah, a little bit bigger, not a lot. They still don't have that. Do
Is
they
our-
even need that? Do they want that? I don't know. We'll see.
Is our best wide receiver just not even on the team yet?
That's very possible. There's a lot of. I feel like a lot of receivers have jumped into the
I
portal.
mean, I don't know
over the
why
last
a
couple
receiver
years.
would want to come to
That's
us.
just-
Yeah,
that's
it's a
what I
tough
was just going to follow up with. That's a great point. But if you're in the portal, are you coming here?
That's
You
the
know,
tough
it
thing.
looks like Orgy's the guy, right?
Being a homer, I
he's not
would.
JJ, and with JJ, we didn't try to throw the freaking ball. So
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
it'll be hard to
and
get him out
there's
of high school or the portal if you're not if you play the way. we play.
there's why I said maybe Morgan and Morris are 2A and 2B because I think wide receiver 1 is actually probably Colson Loveland. So we'll see how
when
that
you
plays
said
out.
40 and 600, those sounded more like Colson Loveland numbers to me than Tyler Morris, though I think Loveland will outperform that, but just closer in that ballpark.
That's probably accurate. I mean, if you said Colston Loveland is going to have less than 40 catches this year, I think people would be pissed.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, he's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to have more than that. I'm trying to think of what he had last year.
I
I'm
think,
pulling that
I was
up
gonna say,
real
I think a
quick.
lot of people thought he should have had more last year.
Yeah. So he had 45 catches last year. So yes,
Wow.
absolutely. If he's got less than
Big
40,
step
that
up.
is a failure. He needs to be probably 50 or more, probably finding the end zone.
I mean, he could have
Eight
had
times?
more,
End
but,
zone,
you know,
whichever
AJ
one.
Barner was legit too. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's very true. Loveland had 4 touchdowns last year. What should he have this year? Double
More
that?
than that.
Double it.
double that.
Yeah,
Yep.
8. I think that feels good too. All right.
7, 8,
So
9,
more from the passing game. Number 4 was, what do you think the longest catch will be in this game on Saturday? Eric, do you remember, what did you say? How many yards was the longest catch?
I took a random guess at 32 yards for no specific reason.
Okay, my dad said like 90. He was
He's
crazy.
like 75 or
75 something. All right, so he was wrong. Nick, what'd you have?
I had 27.
27. Dan,
Random number.
I had 36.
36. I said 42.
So,
And believe it or not, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Kendrick Bell's touchdown through the air was 42 yards. So I was right on the nuts with that. But technically, it was Frederick Moore with a 48-yard catch and run. I mean, he caught a little crosser and then he looked fast. He looked good. I don't know. Is he doing that against against USC? I don't know, but he did it against the Mays team, he did it against the blue team, and looked pretty good on that play. Again, this is where every year there's like one play where something like this will happen, and now everyone's like, Frederick Moore, 100 catches, 10 touchdowns, he's got to be the guy, and it's like,
Probably
I
won't
don't
see the
know.
field.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he'll probably play because the room is thin right now, but how much stock are you putting in Frederick Moore's long catch and run?
You can take it all with a grain of salt at this point. I don't think we're going to be dialing up a lot of home run plays this season.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that he has that in his bag. Do I expect to see that from him every Saturday? Not quite.
Yeah, okay, Rashad, decent point. He probably could do that against the USC defense, but
I wanted to say that too.
they'll be fast. They'll at least have dudes who can run. I don't know if he's outrunning everybody in that one, but that's a decent point. And same thing. I mean, Kendrick Bell, like Nick, I know you just said it about Frederick Moore or Eric, whoever just said it. I don't know how much Frederick Moore is going to play. I don't think Kendrick Bell's going to play at all. And he had the long. That's Ronnie Bell's little brother, by the way.
Yep.
He had the 42-yard, caught it in the end zone on the fly. Was it Davis Warren that threw that?
It was,
I think it was the Warren had the one long touchdown throw to Kendrick Bell. I guess, again, Tyler Morris, 2 catches, Samaj, none. Those 2 touchdowns. The passing game and the wide receiver specifically, Nick, I mean, like, are you worried? Are you worried about that group? Or is it like what we've said, like, they're going to run it anyway, so who cares?
I think they're going to run it anyway. And
Yeah.
And we may have those big plays, but I think it's going to be one of those situations where, and again, these are all hypotheticals. We're all just speculating, but you got Orgy who's in the run game. You got a defense that he freezes with some sort of read option play, and then you pop a quick guy over the middle and he's gone. You catch a defense flat footed and you got a pass and, catch and run for 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. I think that's going to be our pass game this year. Like Dan said, I don't think we're going to take the top off of people. We may do a shot here and there just to keep people honest, but I think it's going to be more that we're going to read you. We're going to make you fall asleep with this run game, and then we're going to hit you when you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are as fast as Roman Wilson. Maybe not even as fast as Cornelius Johnson. I mean, when he got going, he could go. he had a couple long ones over the course of his career. I think you're right. I don't see it out of those guys. I mean, Samaj Morgan showed he's trouble on bubble screens and jet sweeps and making guys miss in a phone booth, stuff like that. But he's not running. Remember, he got caught in the long punt return against Iowa, got caught from behind for a long way. So I just think top end speed, blowing the top off of defenses. I don't know if they have that guy, and we'll kind of see. And even Frederick Moore's touchdown, like I said, was they probably caught it at 10 yards and ran 38 for the rest of it to get to the end zone. So we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. All right, number 5. I believe we were all wrong on this one, if I remember correctly. Maybe not all of us said the same thing, but it was, will Kalel Mullings score a touchdown in this game? I said yes. Did anybody say no? Nick said no. All right.
Remember, I said Orji was going to get in.
Okay, that's right, and he did.
They had that. They had the short yard situation, but at that point, we didn't know the rosters.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Yeah, those came out late night before the game. Yeah, so we didn't know that yet, but. Actually, I was going to go back to the stats. I don't think he even carried it all that much, if I'm not mistaken.
Not a ton.
One thing that I want to mention about our stat predictions is that we probably should have taken this into account. Michigan was playing Michigan, so there's 50% less competition for like carries or for passes. So I know
yeah, well, I wasn't trying to pull a mathematical equation out to come to these numbers, but no,
we both.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Orji's passes by so much. That's what popped it into my head.
Where's the rushing? Kalel Mullings, he carried it 15. He carried it 5 times for 16 yards, so not a lot. Not a ton of production. Tavier Dunlap actually finished as the best back on the day. He had 15 rushes for 66 yards and 4.1 per carry. Looked pretty decent. Kalel 5 for 16. Donovan Edwards 5 for 33. Benjamin Hall. I like Benjamin Hall. He didn't have a great day, but 11 carries for 33 yards for him. So actually maybe 27. They do the stats weird for that. They have the losses on there too. Anyway, so yeah, Kalel Mullings not used a lot. And again, to Nick's point, didn't know exactly what the situation was going to be. I don't think he had any goal line attempts, but I think he'll probably score double-digit touchdowns this fall, if I had to take a guess on that. All right, number 6 was a null and void question. We all thought there was talk that Jack Tuttle may not play. He didn't, so we thought that Alex Orji would play more than him, but he didn't. Anyway, so that one we skipped over. Number 7. This is a little bit of a point of emphasis heading into the fall. I'm curious to get your guys' take here. My question was, will there be a field goal of 40-plus yards made in the game? I said yes. There wasn't. Adam Samaha missed a 30-yarder and made a 31-yarder. Tommy Doman had kind of a shitty punt. Also, like the special teams didn't look real awesome on Saturday. So I guess heading into the fall, I'll go Eric here. Likes to kick a soccer ball around. So maybe, Eric, you have a little bit of insight on this, on the kicking game. What's going on with the kicking game? Are you worried about Adam Samaha? Are you worried about trying to find another guy? I know it's only 2 kicks in the spring game, but a 30-yarder without a real rush, like, I don't know.
Yeah. For the question, I said there wasn't going to be a field goal that long.
Okay.
I was right down by the goal line when he was making that kick, that miss, and it was a little bit concerning. I mean, it's a chip shot. I've kicked footballs with my friends on empty fields before from 40, 45. It's not that tough.
How much eligibility do you have left that area?
Yeah, there we go.
I am absolutely horrible at place kicking, so I do not try to judge very much on that. But
I think it's really easy. It's not hard.
When you're coming off of even James Turner, who was very solid last year, and then Jake Moody before that was automatic for a handful of seasons. Dan, is there? Again, Michigan was beating people by 30 last year. Starters weren't even playing into the fourth quarter. But kicker can be incredibly important. Like, where's your? Are you on a slide scale 1 to 10? Where's your worry at with what you saw?
I mean, 8. I am really concerned. I think that the special teams as a whole is something that gets. I mean, it's very rarely not overlooked. But on our 3-year run of success, I mean, I think the special teams is like wildly overlooked. And I think
and how good they've been. You mean
as a whole? And I get it. It's a spring game and it's cold and it's you play football in the cold, so I shouldn't mention the cold. But they ain't played in a while and they're new guys. And I mean, there's a lot going on and it's a spring game, but I mean, the kickoffs were short, the punts sucked, and you're 50% on field goals. That's not a great sign.
Yeah. And you wonder, I mean,
did you not think the kickoffs were short too? Like they barely made it to the 10.
Yeah, like you said, it was cold and windy, but like it's going to be cold and windy in October and November.
If you play a playoff game in Ann Arbor, I can tell you that.
No, there's no doubt.
I'm dead serious about this. If I were Sharon Moore after the spring game, I would bring the soccer team into Schembechler Hall for open trial.
They've done, dude, big programs have done stuff like this before.
Absolutely, they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find that big leg.
Yeah, you just wonder, you hate to say it because he's not walking back through that door. But to Dan's point, as good as the special teams have been for that 3-year run, and now Jay Harbaugh is not running that unit anymore, that doesn't put more or less strength in Adam Samaha's leg. But you just wonder about the battery and the technique and this and that. You never know. No, you never know. I mean, I do think that. Yeah, you go 50% on 230 yarders against, like an 80% rush speed. You're kind of like, damn, dude, like that's.
And kickers a position very influenced by nerves.
Like our punt unit has been really good.
Yeah, across the board. I agree. I mean, that's
punting is huge. Like field position is like monster.
I thought they would try a 40-yarder just for the sake of trying a long-ish one, and missed a 30-yarder. So there you go. I guess we'll see what that looks like. So. I want to go to Nick for this one because I think he technically got it right halfway. Please name 2 people who will get an interception. Nick, if you could please remind everybody of your answer. We loved it.
I wrote down 2 guys that I haven't heard of.
There you go.
What I wrote down.
I was like, oh, who was it? And you're like, no, that's what I wrote. 2 guys I haven't heard of. I don't know if DJ. I think did you hit your button again, Nick? Are you muting yourself on accident over there? Yep.
Dude, I seriously am. What in the world? Wow.
That time
I didn't want to pull. Yeah, I totally hit the button.
I put
down 2 guys I haven't heard of is what I wrote down.
You have heard of DJ Waller, so I guess maybe.
Yeah, I've heard of DJ Waller, but I just assumed it was going to be dudes later on that like 3rd, 4th guy of the depth chart that I have no idea who they are. So
the later quarterbacks are playing too, and the later receivers and
correct.
I wrote down Makari Page and Brandon Hillman. I'm not even sure if Hillman was in the building. I don't recall even seeing him there. But DJ Waller got the only one. I know Jair Hill made a nice play down the field, not an interception, but a nice pass breakup on Peyton O'Leary. So, Eric, who were your 2 guys? Did they show up for you at all?
2 guys that we haven't really talked much about yet: Zeke Berry and Jaden McBurrows.
Okay, who I think both played a decent.
Yes.
Actually, Zeke Berry played a really nice game. He was around the ball a lot. He had a couple tackles. He was talked about as a guy who's really stepped up. Might be the dude you see more than anybody in terms of replacing Rod Moore and trying to get that spot filled. So I think he was really good.
In the run game.
Yeah, he made some really nice plays on the run against the run. I think he finished with 4 or 5 tackles. So he was pretty solid. Dan, who did you say?
I had Quentin Johnson and Makari Page.
Okay. All right. So none of us picked DJ Waller, and now he's transferring. So there you go. I don't know how much time you really need to spend on that. All right. Number 9. This was the one that I blew hard. And I think everybody else actually went the other way. I said, who do you have for more receiving yards, Colston Loveland or the field? And it wasn't even close. I said Loveland. He finished with 14 yards. Eric, who did you were all over Marlon Klein all day. So I think you said the field, did you not?
I did pick the field, yes.
Okay, Nick?
Field.
Dan?
Field, yeah.
I think I was the only one who said Loveland, if I remember correctly. Loveland finished with 14 yards, and the tight end field finished with 112. 5 different guys. And a couple of them looked pretty good. Marlon Klein, I think, was targeted 4 times and had 2 grabs. Deacon Tonielli, who he's been relatively unheard of so far, I think had a 36-yard catch, maybe. Another guy had a 30. So there were some guys that had a couple nice plays. And certainly Loveland didn't play all that much. That was probably a stupid pick by me, but whatever. I thought you get Loveland in there, you throw it to him 4 times, he might have 80 yards, but no, finished with 14. And I guess that's where, you wonder who can any of these guys be productive behind Loveland? Because he's going to get his. Max Bredesen, I think, had 1 catch for a short gain. He's going to play. He's not much of a receiving threat. And then you're kind of wondering, like, who is that guy next? Eric, I think you said you had a pretty long chat with Marlon after the game because he kind of feels like that next guy. But what kind of things did he say after that game?
Okay, perfect segue. I wanted to bring this up. So thank you to you for mentioning that he's the backup punter for Michigan as well. That came up
because you talked to them about it, right?
Yeah, it came up during the press conference, and he mentioned that, yeah, he's still doing that for the team. But in an interesting turn of events, back in Germany, he played soccer with Florian Wirtz growing up, and I don't expect you to know who that is, but he's a top 15 soccer player in the world, and he's maybe like 21 years old. And Marlon said if he didn't quit playing soccer, he could have been a professional in that sport too.
So can he kick field goals?
Yeah,
I was going to say, call him up.
That's exactly
call him
what
up.
I'm thinking.
So, yeah, so he looked pretty good. Again, the younger guys that haven't done much yet. Hogan Hansen, I think, was targeted. I don't think he had a catch. But so this is the other position where like depth is the concern. You're fine with your starter. Loveland might be one of the best tight ends in the country. Dan, did you see enough or anything out of these other guys where you're like, all right, that'll be okay?
I didn't see it in that game, but I'm not really concerned there.
Yeah. You got Klein. I mentioned Hansen, some of the younger guys. Deacon Tonielli, which I think was wearing was he wearing like number 43 or something? Some random ass number for a tight end. Nick, how important is jersey number for a guy to not look like a dumbass while he's playing?
I mean, we took it.
I'm obviously being stupid, but that's kind of telling sometimes in college.
Yeah.
We've all taken it really. I mean, think of any time you played when you were all through sports. Like your jersey number was everything. Like you didn't want to look like a tool out there. And like you said, you line up at tight end and you're 46 or something. Like that doesn't make any sense. That's a fullback number. I don't know. So
you see it. It's. I'm being goofy, but it actually is indicative when you come back the spring game. Spring game, not so much because guys wear duplicate numbers and they kind of do whatever. But in the fall, if a guy has got like a completely new number on and it's not one that he picked or started with, you're like, well, that guy's probably transferring. Like that guy's gone. Like he's way down the depth chart. They took his number away because they were giving it to somebody else that wanted better, and that's going to play. Like if you're a cornerback and you come in as a freshman and you want number 6 and you show up in the fall wearing number 39, you might be looking for a new school. I mean, that's it sounds silly, but that's really how it works. And you can see there's been a couple guys at Michigan in recent years who have worn 4 different numbers. Every year they get their number taken by another guy.
Legend numbers. Number 1, number 2, 7.
They never get a chance to play because they're just down the depth chart, and that's why their number keeps getting taken. So I'm not saying that's what happened with Tonielli. He's a young player. I doubt he wanted that number, but that's what he's wearing right now, and he actually made a nice play. So we'll see what it looks like moving forward. All right, where do we go? This last one, right? Number 10?
Number 10.
Number 10. How many catches will Donovan Edwards have? Eric, you said?
2.
2. Nick?
I also had 2.
Dan?
I also had 2.
I said 2 as well. I believe my dad said 5 or some.
Yeah,
he had more. He had more. He had none. He had 0 catches in the game, but again, he didn't play that much. How much are they really going to show? I believe the very first play of the game, he lined up out wide. And I'm like, oh, Dono out wide already. And then they motioned and he came back in and it was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they do that a lot. But let's go with this question again. What would be I don't know if you want to say a good season or what's your expectation? Like how many times should Donovan Edwards be catching the ball during a game? So, do you want to go that way or do you want to give a season total? Like what would be a good usage for Donovan as a receiver? Nick, you look distraught. Do you have a number?
I'm just thinking in my own head, like it's really, it could be anywhere all over. I mean, it's hard to speculate right now. Realistically, like in my own head, how I would use him, he's going to be second on the team in receptions.
Yeah.
Second or third.
That's what I wanted to say. He beat me to it. Like, I will not be surprised if he's not number 2 behind Colson.
Yeah.
And who knows? And he might be number 1.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
It
could be, you could have him and Mullings in there at the same time and they're splitting him out. And
I think he's going to carry it a lot. I do. I think he's going to, he's going to carry the water pretty good from the backfield. So I think just that naturally eats into how many catches he could make if he's carrying it that much. But he's so good there. I mean, he's so good as a receiver that if he played there 100,
sound attainable per game for you?
4 to 5. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's you probably will see that.
You're gonna get that on checkdowns.
I was going to look. I was going to look up like in recent years because like Blake Corum wasn't much of a pass catcher. I'm trying to think like when was the last time they had a back that they even threw it to that much? It wasn't. They didn't throw it to Haskins a whole lot. Karan Higdon before that, they didn't throw it to him very much. Like they haven't really had a guy like that. That's why it's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to know how much they're going to use him like that. I mean, 4 to 5, I'd be fine with that. I personally don't think it will be that much. I just don't. I mean, I think you could do that with him, and he's more than capable. But I don't think it. I don't think it will be that much. But
yeah,
you never know. I mean, what's that? That comes out to like 50 catches a year on the season. That's kind of a lot.
I think this offense limits Donovan more than Donovan limits the offense.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of been the case for Michigan offensive players for a while, and you wonder what that's going to look like this year. I'm trying to find that because was it Donovan's freshman year when he had like the 10 or 12 catch game against Maryland or something like that, where he just went off as a receiver. Yeah. I was trying to see what his numbers looked like that year as a receiver. So last year Donovan had 30 catches. That's actually more than I would have thought. That's more than I would have thought. So. Yeah, damn, dude. You might be right. He might get 50 catches this year.
He'll be on the field more for sure.
Yeah, you might get 50 catches out of Donovan this year. Does anybody have a guess as to how many receiving touchdowns Donovan had last year? How many receiving touchdowns did he have in 2023? 15 games.
0.
Eric, you have a guess?
Yeah, but it's probably wrong. 4.
Nick, what'd you say?
0.
Freaking 0, dude. 0 touchdown catches. He looked it up. All right.
Yeah,
Nick cheated a little bit, but that's crazy. He's got to have.
He went we kept saying, "Where's Donovan?" Like,
yeah,
how far into the season? He really didn't do much until
that's true.
The lights got really bright at the end.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, he didn't even have 500 yards rushing, no touchdowns through the passing game. 30 catches is actually more than I would have guessed. I think if he's on the field twice as much, you could easily get 45 or 50 catches on the year. And that, you'd hope you could find the end zone a handful of times throughout that. So there you have it.
Could he get 1,000 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving?
Yeah, I think he absolutely could do that.
He has the talent. I don't think he will.
Yeah.
He had, what did he have?
You look his
he had 250 yards receiving it last year, and he wasn't utilized nearly as much as he's going to be this year. Can he stay healthy? That's a whole other thing.
In theory, then he'd need 60 catches to reach 500 yards. I know it's not exactly like that, but just
right. Yeah, to double up, to go from 30, 250 to 60 to 500. Yeah, I mean, that's how you kind of look at it. I mean, it doesn't always work out like that, but yeah. So there you go. Spring game. Mays wins 17-7. I mean, I don't know. I was there the whole time. Dan and Nick, you guys watched from home. Did you hang in there for the whole thing, or were you like, all right, I'm about done with this?
No, I watched the whole thing.
As we watched it, is there any part of you that wishes it was just like a completely different format? Do you wish it was like maybe shorter? Maybe you don't play a whole game, but you do one quarter of starters versus starters. You get a real look, or do you understand why the coaches do it how they do it and think that's the best way to roll?
I've got a wild idea. What if we did a skills competition instead of a spring game?
People would probably love that. Fans would probably love it.
The fans would, but the coaches need to see these guys play football.
Yeah, you're not going to get as much out of that. I mean, you could do that completely separate of the spring game and have that be a different kind of event.
Dude, buy a ticket, the money goes to NIL.
Yeah, I mean, it's all free, right? I mean, you get into the spring game. Did they have? Oh, by the way, I actually was going to ask you guys that watched it on TV, because me and Eric obviously didn't see any of this. Did they talk about the attendance? Did they say how many people were there?
I don't recall.
No,
they never did. I just know that the other schools were pumping up their numbers, and at the height of it, it looked like it was a decent crowd in the stands.
But they didn't give a number.
They didn't give a number.
Was Cole Cabana injured? I thought we'd see him some.
Who?
Cole Cabana. Was he in uniform, Eric? Did you get any shots of him?
I didn't see him play.
No pictures. Another former player person who I was surprised or who I was looking for did not see. No Denard Robinson.
Well,
so that kind of relates.
It's probably indicative of what's happening with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably. Michael Vick was there.
Michael Vick was there.
That was so strange. I saw him in person. Didn't recognize him. Took 0 photos.
Just thought he was some guy. I think. Well, he works for one of the networks, I think. So but he wasn't working. He was just there chilling. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, Charles Woodson was there. He made a big appearance. Crowd was loving that. A bunch of the former players was there. JJ, I know Eric got some cool shots of him. Chris Jenkins was there with the new cut, getting ready for the draft. Yeah. So. Yeah, they did the ring stuff beforehand, so obviously that was pretty dope. JJ has the picture with like all the rings on. That's like kind of going around, looking viral. That's pretty sweet.
Did anybody think that Harbaugh's block M was too small
on his tat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he got the M that he does on the hat. It's the skinny bow M.
Yeah, but the 15-0, it's all skinny like it.
Yeah,
I mean, if that's what he wanted, it turned out great. But
it's the most perfect Jim Harbaugh tattoo I've ever seen.
It does. It does fit him, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you've seen that on Blake Corum's arm, you'd be like, "What the hell?"
Right. If Jim, so if you'd have been just like sleeved with a 15-0 through, like, yeah, that's not Jim.
I need you guys to publicly shame my dad because he said he was getting a Michigan tattoo if we won the national championship. He tried to rope me into this as well, and I agreed. But I want that on the table.
He bailed. He's not doing it.
It hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to rule it out.
What's your cutoff date?
I believe in my father. It just hasn't happened yet.
You agreed, so you're doing it?
I said some things, yeah.
You can't shame him if you agreed with it and haven't done it either.
No, we're not going to get the same tattoo. If he does it, I'll have to do it, but mine will be a little different probably.
If that was the stipulation, then okay, then we're waiting on Eric's tattoo.
I can't publicly shame him without shaming you too, Eric. If you said
I think it's got to be done before kickoff in the
Oh
fall.
yeah, definitely before the season opener. Then it's like the window's closed.
I said way too much.
So there you go. Well, now we all just sit and wait the 200 days or 180 days or whatever it is until football rolls back around. Basketball's even further out. I mean, how do you guys handle these doldrums that are the no college football, no college basketball? I mean, you got the NBA, okay. I'm not a big baseball guy, but you've obviously got that going full swing. Hockey's kind of wrapping up. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what you guys – I know Nick and Dan, you guys got the kids like nonstop. There's always something with them.
I'll be busy. Football season will be here before you know it. But you know what I'm going to be watching? I'm going to be watching Caitlin Clark.
Okay. Yeah, the $28 million girl, right?
Wow.
WNBA got her own shoe deal. Like,
well, she can buy the WNBA that, can't she?
Yeah, man. She is raking it in. So did she completely turn down the offer from Ice Cube for the Big 3 thing? Is that like
so?
Well, there was Ice Cube, and then there was who's the other one in that too that doubled it.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. Portnoy said that.
Yeah, that was
it. It was Ice Cube, and then that was I can't remember another one doubled Ice Cube's offer.
Wow. I know Portnoy said that he was going to give her $10 million and build a league around her. Like she was going to be like the centerpiece for like a 3-on-3 league. And I was like, damn, she's raking it in, man.
She could be for the WNBA what Magic and Bird and Jordan were for the NBA. She could do that for them. I'm not saying it's going to be the same numbers, but in terms of like giving them some credibility and giving them some revenue, like what is it? 47 out of her 50 games are going to be nationally televised.
Well, and that's probably
like that.
Down the other thing.
Is her college scoring record fraudulent because there was no 3-point line for the previous record holder? What do you think?
I mean, it's been that way for everything in the NBA too, though. I mean, like, you know, at some point you got to count it for what it is. I mean, the game changes, and so, you know, I don't personally believe that's how it should be done. I know the woman whose record it was like, and just so you know, like these old heads always want to do that for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like that woman should be they should all be putting Caitlin Clark on the highest pedestal ever so that people give a damn about their game for once.
Hey,
I mean, like, that sounds hard, but that's the truth.
I don't know if you guys heard it. I think it was strategic. Diana Taurasi talking a little smack to her about, she's gonna get what's coming to her when she comes to the league. That's so smart. You create a little rivalry, give people a reason to watch. Like that's so smart.
What it was, or is it the UConn element from Taurasi coming in?
Well, it could be. It could be both. It could be either one.
I'm sure there's
just true competitors saying you're not as good as you think.
Dude, I like that version,
man. She's always been that way, and she probably believes it. I mean, they all believe that. You know, every time there's some rookie phenom or some young buck, everybody wants to be like, "No, it ain't going to be like that when you get up here." And then, you know, that's where that spawns from. So, Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty cool though, man. Like, dude, what a life-changing just a 3 was it 3? Did she leave early? Or was it 4?
That's early.
Yeah, that's what
Early,
that in itself is like not very common in the WNBA. So that's pretty awesome. Setting that precedent, dude, making bank, dude. 30 mil damn near with the shoe deal and all that stuff. And yeah, man, that's pretty badass. So I don't know, Nick, you got the next one? Is she living in your house?
I've got 3 daughters, so it gives me hope.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I mean, they got to have a little bit, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you just see the number of kids that are like young girls that are paying attention to basketball now because of her.
Yeah.
Like, she's already transcended the game, so it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. And you coach girls basketball too. Yeah, I mean, I have a little soft spot for that too. I used to coach girls, and you know, it's a different game. It is, and people will bag on it when they want to. But hey, man, it's they still go out there and get after it, dude. So hey, I have a son. Kind of plays like a girl sometimes right now. I don't know. We're waiting to see. He had his first basketball practice today, and the first jumper. I was like, oh boy, got a little bit of work to do on that. But anyway, see how it goes. We'll be back on next Wednesday. I think this is where we get into again these doldrums that we're talking about. I don't know what we're going to talk about moving forward, so we'll see.
We'll find something.
But we will still plan on doing a show a week on Wednesday. It's looking like 8 o'clock works better for the dads with the kids and all the sports and stuff, and we'll go from there. But and then we'll continue to try to find things to talk about until it gets real dead. Usually the month of June or July, I try to take a little time off too, because I like, you know, people are traveling. I know you guys will probably be doing some family trips. Eric will be floating down the Amazon somewhere in a loincloth or whatever the hell he's doing. So we'll see how that all goes. But as of
next week we'll talk about the 14 or 15 or 16 or 17 Michigan players that get drafted tomorrow. And
that's true.
Saturday.
That's true. Let's finish right there. That's a good point. I wanted to touch on it a little bit, but there's so many mock drafts and speculations, and like I don't think we need to go through the whole thing. Where do you guys think JJ goes? He's obviously going to be the first Wolverine picked. Somebody's looking at him as their franchise QB. I've seen him mocked anywhere from 2 to 15, probably anywhere in between there. Where do you think he's going to go, Eric? Do you have a guess on the record right now of where JJ McCarthy will play in the NFL?
Yeah, it's very on the record. Number 4 feels right to me, but there was some strange stuff that happened this morning about the LA Chargers draft odds of taking a quarterback with their first selection. They went from 100 to 1 to 6 to 1. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if Jim and JJ are reuniting in the NFL, but it really got my attention.
I heard on the radio today about, and I think it's just a rumor. I don't think it's anything with any like real substantial backing, but talking about like 3 or 4 first round picks and a player for Justin Herbert. And then that opens up the door. Like, I don't know why you would do that. Like, Herbert is he's already the guy. Like, and the reason why I don't think it will happen is because I think that Jim Harbaugh, for as weird as he is and all the quirks, he is a quarterback and he knows how important it is to get that guy right. And he's already got the guy. I just don't see how he goes away from that. And everywhere he's been, I think there's a very good chance Blake Corum goes to the Chargers in like the second or the third round, but
he probably made some comment intentionally just to, just like everything else he said about him going number 1 overall and everything else like that. It's just more hype stuff. I think there's no way he's getting rid of Herbert.
Yeah. So Eric, you said 4 to who though? Number 4 to.
I think the Vikings trade up.
That's what I think. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think the Vikings trade into the 4th spot. They've got 2 first round picks, so they've kind of been setting themselves up to be able to do this. You move into 4, which I've thought about though, because okay, I was kind of skipping up. Nick, do you think it's different than that? Where do you think he ends up?
I was going to say the same thing. I have a student in my classroom. Brandon, you know who he is. Rodney's kid. Brought up. He's
a big Vikings fan.
He is a big Vikings fan. He came up and goes, "Mr. Hennigy, look," shows me his Chromebook. His backdrop is JJ in a Vikings uniform. It looked right. Legit. I was like, you know what? It's probably going to happen.
Dan, what do you? And I don't know why I do feel like JJ could so easily be a Patriot, even though they blow right now. They still have the Patriot, like
New England at 3.
New England at 3.
That's what I'm saying.
if it's not Drake May, it probably is JJ. So it's probably, which guy do they have higher on the board right there? That's probably what it comes down to.
Well, I mean, 20 years of success with a Michigan quarterback. No success without one. Let's just get another Michigan quarterback.
I don't hate the idea. So you got Caleb Williams 1 to the Bears, Jane Daniels 2 to the Commanders, possibly JJ 3 to the Patriots, Dan says. Then 4 is the Cardinals. They're not going to take a quarterback, but they're that first team that could trade out for some capital, and then that could be the Vikings.
You sure they're not just going to take Marvin Harrison Jr.?
They could.
At 4?
That's what I would do if I was staying put.
That's what I would do.
Where do they fall to? Is it 11? Is that the Vikings pick that they have?
11.
11,
yeah.
I don't know, I had 13 in my head. But
and then they have 23. I think they'd have to give them both.
They'd have to give them both.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if the Cardinals fall back to 11, they're not getting Marvin Harrison. So that's what they would have to weigh.
I mean, if you think Kyler Murray's going to be your guy, you better get him something to throw to.
Yeah.
So,
dude, do the Chargers then take Marvin Harrison at 5? That would be a pretty interesting pick because they don't have receivers anymore. They lost Mike Williams. They lost Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Giants take a run at JJ if he slips past those
Jim
first
Harbaugh's
5?
Kind of been set up this whole time is get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5.
Yeah. So then there's the Giants. I mean, they still have Daniel Jones. They're paying him a bunch of money, but do they take a shot at JJ? I can't remember who's at 7. 8 is I think the Raiders
Broncos?
are lower than
Is
that.
it the Broncos?
Are they
I think the Broncos are lower than that too. Oh, the Titans. The Titans are at 7.
Titans.
Yeah, they've got some young QBs, but I don't think they're any good. So are they in the market for a quarterback if JJ slips to them? I think 8 is the Falcons. That's where I thought he was going to go until they got Kirk Cousins. So they're good.
Mm-hmm.
Bears at 9.
Bears at 9. They obviously won't be back after for quarterback. 10 is the Jets, I believe.
Vikings 11.
The Vikings are at 11. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way JJ goes past 11. And I think the Raiders are back there and the Broncos are back there. Some other guys that need quarterbacks, but I don't think he gets there.
I don't think he gets to the Vikings at 11. If they're taking him, they're moving up.
They're gonna have to move up.
I don't think he's getting to 11.
That's been my thought. I thought the Vikings moving up to 4 make the most sense, but I'm like, do they really need to trade up? He's not going to go to the Chargers. He's not going to go to the Falcons. There's only a couple teams in front of him who might even think about taking him, and I don't know if it's a guarantee. I don't think the Giants are for sure going to take a quarterback at 6. I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of places he could end up.
From 6 to 10, the teams that aren't going to take a quarterback could easily trade those picks too.
Yeah, true.
So many
and not have to move that far to get some bank in the draft department. So.
And then last but not least, let's do just a tiny, tiny bit of Lions talk. I know Nick's a diehard Lions fan. I can't remember. Eric, are you a Lions guy?
I'll watch their games.
And Dan, are you a big NFL guy, period? You're not much of a...
Yeah, I like NFL, but I've never been a Lions fan.
Never been... Okay, so we'll do a quick one. Who's your team then, Dan? Do you have a team in the NFL?
New England.
The Patriots. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
So Dan talked about his Patriots pick. Nick...
And it was a Tom Brady thing, obviously.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Easy guy to root for. Obviously, Michigan guy, and they won every damn year. So we can kick Dan out of the room now. He doesn't know what it's
I would like to say I'm a Lions fan. It's just not diehard to any extent.
Well, mine is painfully diehard. I believe Nick's in the same boat. We got together and watched the playoff game a couple times this past year. What are they doing, man? 29. What are they doing right there?
It's unfortunate they finally have the draft in Detroit, and we have a pick where if we keep it, if we keep the 29th pick, we won't be picking until like 11:30 at night.
Yeah, no kidding. People will be hammered by then, just not even being able to see
right.
the
And there's a real possibility that we trade it and move back and don't even take someone the first night. But we're in a weird spot because I don't know. My expectations, like normally it's a weird feeling for a Lions fan because normally we're like getting one of the first, top 10 picks. Guys, we're all like, oh, we need this franchise changing player. And it's like, we had a good year. We just need to build some depth. I'm looking
guard.
Honestly, I'm looking at, I need someone who can play center and guard. We need some depth on that O line because Ragnall's not going to be around much longer. So you might as well bring the guy in who can do his spot and somebody else's if someone goes down. Like
there's a bunch of ways to approach it. Do you try to get a guy who's going to step because like you're saying, if you take a lineman right there, he might not need to play much this first year, but you're setting yourself up for 10 years of a versatile dude who can keep the line going. Or Do you go out and get a corner who can play right away or an edge guy who can play right away and get them over a little bit more of a hump to try to make a run at the Super Bowl right now? So yeah, it's very foreign waters for us Lions fans. There's no doubt. I don't know. There's a lot. There's like 30 names who have been thrown around at the 29th spot. That's the other thing. 1 through 10 is like these are the 10 guys. Like maybe the order jockeys a little bit, but these 10 guys are going to be gone. There's no way around it. You get to 29, dude, there's like 15 guys left with a first round grade that are still sitting there. And you're like, do you take one of them or you wait till the next pick in the second round? Like, what does that end up looking like? So yeah, it's going to be cool. I'm kind of bummed I'm not going. It's not very far from where I live. We talked about that earlier too. I know you none of you guys are going, right? Nobody's heading down to Detroit for any of that stuff. Yeah. I kind of wish I would have went, could have done it for work, but we'll just watch it from the couch. We'll just watch it from the couch.
Lions fans got to be more confident than they've ever been on draft day, though.
I think it's a great feeling.
You take the last 2 drafts and combine them and give teams a grade. There's nobody that grades out higher than the Lions.
Yeah, last year.
Just trust him and see who he gets, man.
Yeah, I agree.
He's done an awesome job.
6-8 guys picked last year, and they all played, all started, all played, like crazy. Yep. A couple of people have asked about this. I'll throw this in there real quick, and then we'll sign off. DJ Waller entered the portal. He was the very first thing we talked about. So if you guys were a little late joining us, it's at the beginning. You can watch this on playback. I know throughout the comments there were people asking about that, but that's the deal with that. We spent a good 15 minutes on it, but it was at the very beginning, right out of the gate. So there you go. Appreciate you guys. Golly, an hour and 21 minutes. I always think like, we'll get out of here a nice clean hour and 20 minutes. Tell the wives I'm sorry, Eric. I know you don't have shit going on. You're good. But those guys, I don't know, kids might be in bed still. Maybe they're running around. I don't know. But we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about the draft, talk about where the Wolverines ended up, and whatever else happens. I mean, Dusty May might get 7 more players. We'll see what happens. But talk to you guys on Wednesday.